noise. All right, so I have two things with me, that worksheet, whether you're just gonna, obviously if you're here, you have it in front of you, or if you're at home, you can kind of just look at it. And I have my chart, because your chart is going to be your friend when we start to do these. The first thing it asks you at the top, how do you find a coterminal angle if it is in radians? So you do need to know this, because we're gonna need it for a few problems. So a coterminal in radians, we talked about it yesterday, but I will remind you. You add or subtract 2 pi. That's the main thing to remember. Add or subtract 2 pi. So other than that, I like these because there's not a lot of work. So instead of the old way we were doing it, which was we had a circle, we looked at points, then we looked up the function, then we saw what we need. We're using this chart, which is nicely filled in for us, and we can kind of just refer to that. So if I said, hey, can you do number 1? You would say, heck yes, I can do number 1, because that's super easy. All you're going to do is in your chart, find pi over 4. So I go down my column, or you wrote it down yesterday. So find pi over 4, and then follow it over to the sign column, and whatever is there is your answer. So in that case, it would be root 2 over 2. Okay, and you're done. Like literally, that's it. Those are nice. The issue comes for one like number 4. Sorry, I'm just spacing it out because I will do 2 and 3 eventually. I'm just kind of skipping around. So when you get to number 4 and you say, ooh, cosecant of 13 pi over 4. You go to your chart, you're feeling pretty good, you're on a roll, and they say, oh, crud, there is no 13 pi over 4. That's when your coterminal comes into play. So remember, for a coterminal, we just wrote it right here, we're going to take our angle, that's in radians, and we're going to either add or subtract 2 pi. We don't want to add 2 pi. This is already too big, right? I already did too many rotations. So since it's too big, I'm going to subtract 2 pi. And I'm using my calculator, and I'm a math teacher, so I would suggest you have one too. And I'm going to do 13 over 4. I'm not putting my pi symbol in because that makes it all messy. And I'm going to subtract 2, and that's going to give me 5 over 4. And then once again, I would just put my pi back in. So that's what I'm going to be looking up in my chart. So what happens is those are actually the same angle. It's just that one rotated an extra time around. So that's the difference, but they do represent the same angle, so that's why we can find those coterminals. So now that I have the coterminal angle, okay, 5 pi over 4, let me check. Okay, I found it. And then I follow it over to the cosecant column. And then whatever's there is my answer. So my answer would be negative root 2. That's it. So that's basically as crazy as they get. So some of them, you literally just look it up and you're done. Some of them, as you're kind of looking it up and you don't see the angle, you might have to find a coterminal. So a reminder for one like number 5, there's a negative. Don't just like look for that angle. You have to add 2 pi to it. So since it's negative and it's too small, you would add 2 pi to get it in that range. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now, I'm doing attendance. You're trying 1 through 8. Obviously, we already did 1 and 4. So can you use your chart as a guide and find the answers to 1 through 8? Yes, ma'am.
I didn't finish my chart because I wasn't here yesterday. And I don't know how to finish it. I forget.
Let me get you one.
Oh yeah, can I get one of the paper tricks?
Absolutely. Here, here's a chart. Well, that one we do it here. I'm here, so you can use mine for a second. You can copy those into that column.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, whenever you're done, just pass it to Gavin and you can copy them too.
Okay.
And then that should make more sense because you can look everything up. You're trying 1 through 8. Well, some of them we've already done. Just looking at some values, and then maybe for some of them having to find coterminals. This is block 2 steep. We got again. We're all here today. Where's the middle go? So at home, once again, you can just kind of write those in your notebook, that's perfectly fine. Once again, the worksheet was more to just keep us organized. I tend to get a little crazy if I just go through. All right. Got a few minutes, I don't wanna rush you, but once again, hopefully those aren't too work intense here. But yeah, thanks Gavin on Scrabix. I needed to do some problems, thanks.
Yep. Can I go to the bathroom?
Yep, go ahead. Alright, got 30 more seconds, we're gonna go reload, and I'm gonna show you how to do the one back. Keep track of people. Pain in the butt. All right. Okay. Sorry. Just making sure my attendance is correct. I have to change it a million times. Okay, so let's look at those. So once again, I just have two things handy, my actual problems, so I obviously need those, and my chart, which is gonna be my friends, because it's gonna do most of the work for me, I just need to kind of look it up. All right, so number 2 I'm liking, because I just find pi, which is right there, and I go over to the cosine column, and your answer to number 2 should be -1. So just check that one. Once again, I'm not really showing my work, because there's not a lot of work to show, it's just me looking at a chart. Number 3, it says tangent to 5 pi over 3. Okay, so I find 5 pi over 3, I look, okay, I see it, great. I go over to the tangent column, and then whatever's there is my answer, and that would be -√3. Fabulous. We had done number 4, because that one needed a coterminal, just to remind you of that step. So that one's all set. So let's look at these other ones. Number 5. What do we got? Oh, okay. So -pi/6 is not in my chart, right? There's no negatives in my chart. So please don't say, well, pi/6 is there. Not the same thing. So what I do is I take -pi/6, and I'm going to add 2 pi to find my coterminal. I have no clue what that is. So I'm using my calculator. Comes out to 11 pi over 6. Okay, I can do that. Because as I look at my chart, that's right there. 11 pi over 6. I follow it over to the secant column, and my answer should be 2 root 3 over 3. So, sorry, making sure I'm still on the camera here. That one's good, because if we had done that by hand, especially with that fraction, it would have been a big old mess. So having that information definitely helped us out there. Number 6, we had cotangent of 2 pi over 3. I think 2 pi over 3 is right there, feeling good. Follow it over to the cotangent column, and I get negative root 3 over 3. So once again, I don't really need to show anything, I just kind of look it up. Number 7, I'm going to have to do a coterminal. Oh, but it was 13 pi over 4, which I just did over there. So when I do 13 pi over 4 plus 2 pi, it comes out to 5 pi over 4. Excuse me, that should be minus 2 pi, not plus. It's pretty related. So I'm really looking at the sine of 5 pi over 4, which is a good old, I have no clue, negative root 2 over 2. All right. So there's one more, number 8. So number 8, I'm kind of struggling here, but I'll go on the bottom. I look and I say, oh, 17 pi over 4 isn't in my chart. So I'm going to start by finding a coterminal. I'm going to take 17 pi over 4 and subtract 2 pi. I grab my calculator, right? 17 over 4 minus 2, because I don't put the pi's in, I leave that for later. It comes out to 9 over 4. And if I try to look up 9 over 4, 9 pi over 4, it's not there. So I'm like, oh crap, that didn't work. So if it doesn't work the first time, you just keep subtracting 2 pi. So I'm going to subtract 2 pi from that. And then that gives me just pi over 4. So that's what I'm going to use as my coterminal. So sometimes things are rotated around a few times. Oh, excuse me, pi over 4 is not my answer. That's just my coterminal. So when I look up the tangent of pi over 4, my answer is 1. No, so once again, that just means it rotated a few times. So if you add or subtract and it's still not in your range, you just kind of keep adding or subtracting. Oh, sorry, that was a little messy on number 8 there, but I was trying to squish it in, even though the whole left side is. So I'll give people a second to write those down, but make sure you're trying those. Once again, we should be in the zone here that at the end of class. People here, I will check it, and people at home, you will submit it. So just as a heads up. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the back, and the back looks a little different. The nice thing is there's literally you don't need to do anything. So you need to know how to use your chart. So I'm going to show you how to use it. I am going to project my chart up just so we have something to kind of refer to. And then I'll show you how that all works. But I kind of like these ones on the back. It's kind of like the ones on the front. You're just kind of looking them up. You don't have to, on the back, you don't have to deal with coterminals. So that's always good. You just look it up and you're done. So let me get my chart up. Here's my chart. Let me make it a little smaller, a little large. Okay, I'm going to put my projector on. Ooh, hiccups. And by the way, if you checked your grade so far in term 2, I'm pretty sure everyone has 100 right now because everyone's pretty much been showing up and participating. So that definitely benefits you because besides doing these classworks, we'll have a few assessments, but assessments don't really kill your grade. So as long as you show up and do your work, you should be in pretty good shape for this class. So just try to, I know it's hard to stay motivated, but do your best. Basically, come to class and write something down and you'll be good with me. All right, I know at home there's a little bit of a glare. For the first one, I'll kind of write on the board and then I'll put the screen down, and you have this chart to look at. It's just, I wanted to show you a few things about it. All right, so let me actually erase the problems. So you can actually see what's going on. Okay, so here's how we do this. So the first one, it's just easier if I can kind of write on this, but then I'll put the thing down, so I know there's a bit of a glare at home. All right, so the first problem says, so this is number 9. There's an interval. An interval means we're gonna be looking between 2 points. I'll just write it first. So what this is telling us is we have this big chart, but we are only gonna look at one section of the chart. We're only gonna look between pi and 3 pi over 2. So I'm gonna move my chart a little bit so I can see, and once again, I know there's a little glare at home, but we'll just kind of deal with it for this with just this one. I'm only looking, so once again, I have a big old chart, but I am only looking for answers between pi and 3 pi over 2. So the rest of the chart I don't care about for this specific problem. So that's basically what this is saying. It's saying my answer is somewhere in there. Okay, that's what that means. Then in that section, we look at the sign column and we see where does sign equal -1/2. Okay, so I go to the sign column and I find where sign equals -1/2. Okay, that wasn't bad, so I'm just looking something up. And the way I write my answer, your answer is whatever the radian is for that row. So your answer to this would just be 7 pi over 6, and you'd be done. Basically, we're doing something backwards. Usually I give you the radian, you look up the value, and this one you're given the value, you look up the radian. So once again, this pi to 3 pi over 2 is just telling you where to look. So it's basically just taking your chart and just saying, look in this specific section between pi and 3 pi over 2. And then in that section, you go to the sign column and you look for -1/2. And then once you find it, the radian that goes with it is your answer. So I'm going to put my thing down because I know with the projector and being at home, there's probably a big old dot in the middle of the screen. So I'll put that down so it's a little bit easier to see now. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the next one. So I'm looking at my chart. You have your chart in front of you, or you have it like right up on your screen. I'm looking between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. So I'm in this range. I don't care about anything else for this problem besides being in this section. So then it says cosine equals √2/2. So I go to the cosine column. I find √2/2, which is right here. And then I just look over and say, what's the radian that goes with that? And your answer to number 10 should be 7 pi over 4. So I'm just going to go through that again. So the 3 pi over 2, 2 pi is just where I'm looking. So I'm looking in this section from here to here. And then it says cosine equals √2/2. I go to the cosine column. I find √2/2, which is right here. And then once I found it, I go and look at what radian goes with that angle. And it's 7 pi over 4. So that would be your answer, 7 pi over 4. Okay, so we basically just kind of keep repeating that. The nice thing about these is like you literally don't need to do anything else besides look in the chart. So I know sometimes it's a little bit confusing just to get used to what you're looking for, but that's why we practice a little. So number 11, I'm kind of scrolling, or you're just looking at a different section of your chart. We're looking between pi over 2 and pi. So I'm focusing between here and here. I'm going to go to the tangent column, the tangent here, and I'm going to find -√3/3. Oh, it's right here. Delightful. So once again, it has to be between here and here. We find -√3/3 in the tangent column, and then I just backtrack and see what's the radian that goes with that. Your answer to number 11 should be 5 pi over 6. So number 12, between 0 and pi over 2, so I'm in this section. I find cosecant, so I go over to cosecant, is 2 root 3 over 3. Oh, it's right here, okay, right here. And then once I find it, I just see the radian that goes with it. So your answer to number 12 is pi over 3. So using your chart, can you please try numbers 13 and 14? And then you can take on the sum of mine, you probably can see everything you need, but you should have a chart handy, whether it's on your computer in front of you. I'll give you a minute or two. Can you try to look up 13 and 14? All right. So as you're kind of organizing your brain ski here, on number 13, I just go to my section that I need. So I need between pi over 2 and pi. So I find that section. I go to the secant column, where is secant over here, and I find where secant is equal to -2. Oh, right there. Beautiful. So there it is. I just go back and look at what radian goes with it, and that should be 2 pi over 3. So that's your answer to 13. And then 14, I'm between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi, so I'm at the very bottom here. I go over to cotangent. I find where it equals -√3 right here. And then I find the radian that goes with it, and that should be 11 pi over 6 for number 14. Oh. So we've seen our chart is our friend. Please keep it handy. Don't lose it. It's just a big pain, so try to keep your stuff semi-organized. Oh, I just noticed it. Because the alternative is then you have to use the circle, and it's a big pain in the butt. So you don't want to do that. So chart is your friend. Have it handy. Just leave that up for another minute or two if anyone needs anything. Okay, I'm just gonna pause this.